3 weeks ago, I handed my fiancé his ex-girlfriend's phone number, took back the engagement band, and told him, "Go call the woman you've been comparing me to for months." The look on his face almost made me stay. Almost. My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 32 years old. Ryan Carter and I had been together for 3 years. 8 months before everything fell apart, he proposed at my favorite restaurant, the small Italian place where the staff knew our usual table and always brought extra bread without asking. He was nervous through the whole dinner, checking his jacket pockets so often that I finally teased him. "Are you hiding a medical emergency in there?" He laughed too quickly. 10 minutes later, he was on one knee beside the table, holding a ring box with both hands, like he was afraid he might drop our entire future. I cried before he finished asking. Of course I said yes. For a while, everything felt exactly the way people say it should feel. My mother started sending me dress ideas before we even got home. His family welcomed me, like I already belonged. Our friends posted congratulations. Ryan kept looking at my hand and smiling like he couldn't believe I'd said yes. Then wedding planning started, and somehow Vanessa entered our relationship. Vanessa was Ryan's ex-girlfriend. She lived 2 states away. They hadn't dated in years. And as far as I knew, there were no secret calls, no hidden messages, no physical cheating. That almost made it harder to explain, because she wasn't actually there. Ryan simply carried her into every room with us. The first time, I barely reacted. We were scrolling through venues when I showed him a beautiful indoor ballroom with tall windows and warm lighting. Ryan shrugged. Vanessa always liked outdoor weddings. I waited for him to add something useful. He didn't. A few days later, while we looked at invitation designs, he pointed at a minimalist card and said, "That looks like something Vanessa would have picked." During flowers, he mentioned her again. During seating charts, again. During an argument with his mother about guest numbers, again. At first, I tried to be reasonable. People bring up old relationships sometimes. Wedding planning makes everyone tense. Maybe he didn't realize how often he was doing it. Maybe I was being sensitive because this was supposed to be our wedding, not a comparison test I hadn't agreed to take. One evening, after he said Vanessa always knew how to calm people down, I finally asked him, "Ryan, why does she keep coming up?" He looked genuinely confused. "Who?" "Vanessa." He gave me a tired little smile, the kind people use when they want you to feel silly for caring. "Claire, I'm just making observations." "About your ex." "You're overthinking it." That answer stayed with me because it wasn't an apology. It wasn't even concern. It was a dismissal, wrapped neatly enough that if I complained again, I'd look unreasonable. After that conversation, I started noticing a pattern. Hardly a week went by without Vanessa's name finding its way into another discussion. By the 9th comparison, I no longer wondered if I was imagining it. We were discussing honeymoon ideas, and I suggested Italy. Ryan barely looked up from his phone before saying, "Vanessa always wanted to visit Greece." I remember watching his face after he said it, waiting for the embarrassment to hit him. It never did. 3 days later, we went to a formal wear boutique to choose his wedding suit. He tried on charcoal gray, navy, then a classic black suit that fit him so well even the saleswoman smiled before I said anything. "That one," I told him. Ryan turned toward the mirror. "You think so?" "I know so." He actually looked excited. We finished the paperwork, thanked the staff, and walked out into the parking lot. I was actually relieved. No tension, no awkward comments, no wedding stress. Just one normal afternoon. Then Ryan glanced back toward the store and said, "You know, Vanessa probably would have picked the gray one." I stopped beside a row of parked cars. He took 2 more steps before turning around. "What?" The old version of me would have explained. She would have softened her voice and tried to make him understand without making him defensive. She would have said, "That hurt my feelings," and hoped he cared enough to ask why. I didn't do that. I looked at him and said, "Sounds like you chose poorly." His expression shifted. "What?" "If Vanessa would have picked the better suit, planned the better wedding, handled your mother better, chosen the better honeymoon, then it sounds like you chose poorly." He stared at me, confused at first, then uneasy, because I wasn't crying or raising my voice. I wasn't giving him a scene to manage. I was simply done. "Claire, you're being ridiculous." I pulled out my phone. "What's her number?" His eyebrows lifted. "Whose number?" "Vanessa's." He laughed, but it sounded thin. "You can't be serious." "I am." "You're overreacting." That word landed exactly where all the others had. I held out my hand. "Give me her number." Ryan shook his head like I was performing for him. He was so sure I was bluffing that he actually told me. I typed it into my contacts, forwarded it to his phone, and put my phone away. "There," I said, "now you have it." He looked at his screen, then back at me. "What are you doing?" You've spent months explaining why Vanessa would have been better. Call her. I never said she was better. You didn't have to. You said it 10 different ways. His face changed. You counted? Yes. That was when the argument lost its air. Counting meant it wasn't one careless comment. It wasn't wedding stress. It was a pattern he thought I hadn't noticed. I looked down at his left hand, at the engagement band we had chosen together after the proposal because he wanted something simple to wear too. For a second, the weight of 3 years pressed against my chest. I wanted him to apologize. I wanted him to realize what he'd done before I had to become the person who walked away. Instead, he muttered, "You're blowing this way out of proportion." I reached for his hand and slid the band off his finger. His voice cracked. "Claire, what are you doing?" I closed my fingers around it, placed it in my purse, and looked him straight in the eye. "You're single now." Ryan looked around the parking lot. A few people had stopped walking. A couple walking toward the store slowed down to watch. Even the saleswoman who had helped us earlier was standing near the entrance looking in our direction. For once, he looked genuinely embarrassed. Ryan stepped back as if I'd slapped him. "No, we're not doing this." "We already did. You can't end an engagement over this." "I'm not ending it over one comment," I said. "I'm ending it because every time you compared me to her, you made it clear I was competing for a place I should have already had." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I turned and walked to my car while he called my name across the parking lot. When I got inside, he knocked on the passenger window, talking fast, panic finally breaking through his face. I didn't roll it down. I started the engine, looked at him through the glass for one final second, and drove away. Halfway home, the tears came. They weren't regret. They were exhaustion leaving my body all at once. By the time I reached my apartment, I knew I wasn't going back. I blocked his number, blocked his social media, and set the band on my kitchen counter. The silence around me felt strange, but underneath it was something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. It lasted 48 hours. Then Ryan's family started calling. The first voicemail came from his sister. "Claire, what the hell is wrong with you? Ryan's devastated. You can't throw away 3 years because of a few stupid comments. Call him." His mother called an hour later. "Marriage requires maturity. Ryan made a mistake, and instead of talking through it, you humiliated him. My son deserves better than this." By evening, his best friend had joined in too. "Look, he can be clueless, but he loves you. You're ending an engagement over nothing." That word kept showing up. Nothing. Months of being compared to another woman had become nothing. My humiliation was nothing. My repeated attempts to explain myself were nothing. Not one of them asked if I was okay. They only wanted to know how quickly I could make Ryan stop hurting. So I stopped listening and handled the part nobody else seemed interested in, the wedding. On Monday morning, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, contracts, receipts, and a notebook. Ryan and I had divided wedding responsibilities in a way that seemed harmless at the time. He handled colors, guest experience, music choices, and the details he liked. I handled deposits, contracts, deadlines, and vendor calls because I was better organized. That meant every financial obligation was in my name. The venue deposit was $3,000. The photographer was $1,500. The caterer required $2,000 upfront. The DJ had already been paid. By the time I finished adding everything, just over $7,000 of my money was tied to a wedding that no longer existed. The venue coordinator was kind when I called. "Is everything okay?" she asked. "The wedding won't be happening." She didn't pry. She reviewed the contract and told me I could recover half the deposit because we were still more than 6 months out. The photographer agreed to return part of the money if she could rebook the date. The DJ refunded me completely. The caterer kept the deposit. By the end of the day, I had recovered around $3,000 and lost roughly $4,000. It stung, but every cancellation made the breakup feel cleaner. I wasn't destroying a wedding. I was clearing the wreckage. The ring was more complicated. The return window had closed months ago. Store credit only. $6,000 sitting in a small box on my counter, representing a future I no longer wanted and money I probably wouldn't see again. That evening, my phone rang from what looked like a work number. I answered without thinking. "How dare you?" Ryan's mother snapped. I closed my eyes. "Hello to you too. You canceled the wedding without discussing it with Ryan. We broke up." "That doesn't mean you get to make decisions alone." "Actually, it does when the contracts are in my name and the payments came from my account." She talked over me, insisting Ryan had been stressed, that he hadn't meant anything by Vanessa, that I was being cruel. I let her go until she ran out of breath. "How many times," I asked, "does your son get to compare me to his ex before I'm allowed to believe him?" That finally made her pause. Then she said, "He didn't mean it that way." That was the answer everyone kept giving me. Nobody denied what he did. They just wanted me to tolerate it. Tell Ryan something for me, I said. What? If Vanessa would have made a better fiancé, he's free to find out. I ended the call. The next morning, Ryan stopped sending other people and showed up at my apartment with his sister beside him. My doorbell camera buzzed while I was drinking coffee. When I opened the app, there they were. Ryan looking pale and exhausted, his sister standing with her arms crossed like she'd come to negotiate a hostage situation. The doorbell rang 3 times before I pressed the intercom. What do you want? Ryan stepped closer. Claire, please open the door. No. His sister rolled her eyes. Seriously? Very. Ryan rubbed his face. Can we talk? We've been talking for months. I talked. You dismissed me. He looked down, then back at the camera. I know I messed up. I waited, because some stupid part of me still wanted to hear a real apology. But ending everything over this is insane, he added. That killed whatever softness had started to rise in me. His sister jumped in. And you can't keep the ring. The band is mine, I said. Ryan returned it. No, he didn't. Ryan closed his eyes. He handed it back in the parking lot, I said. And before you start, I already checked the law. In this state, engagement rings are conditional gifts. No marriage, no ring. Neither of them expected that. They expected tears, maybe guilt, maybe a cracked door, and a chance to push their way back into my life. They did not expect statutes, receipts, and a locked deadbolt. Ryan's voice dropped. We're really turning 3 years into a legal argument? No, I said. You turned 3 years into a comparison chart. That one landed. His face went quiet, almost ashamed, but late shame doesn't repair early damage. They argued for 10 more minutes, circling the same points until I finally said, if you don't leave, I'm calling the police. His sister looked offended. You'd call the police on family? I almost corrected her, then didn't bother. We weren't family anymore. Ryan seemed to understand that before she did. He stared into the camera, nodded once, and said, come on. She protested, but he touched her arm and led her away. An hour later, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Hey, this is Vanessa, Ryan's ex. I read it twice. A second message came through. Ryan called me crying yesterday. I think we need to talk. Until then, Vanessa had been a name Ryan used to make me feel smaller. I had never spoken to her, never heard her voice, never known who she was beyond the polished version Ryan kept dragging into our relationship. I typed back, what do we need to talk about? Her reply came almost immediately. Honestly, what he told you about me and what he thinks exists between us are not the same thing. I sent her my number. When she called, the first thing she said was, Claire, I'm sorry. That threw me off. For what? For whatever part I accidentally played in this. Ryan called me, and I think you deserve to know the truth. She sounded tired, not dramatic, like someone being pulled back into a mess she thought she'd escaped years ago. He called crying, she said. At first I thought someone died. Then he started talking about your engagement, mistakes, regrets, second chances. My stomach tightened. I told him not to call me again, Vanessa said. I sat back. You did? Claire, I've been married for a while now. I didn't answer immediately. Suddenly, all those comparisons sounded ridiculous. He'd spent months measuring me against a woman who hadn't wanted him in years. My husband was sitting right beside me when Ryan called, she continued. I pressed my fingers to my forehead. Oh my God. Exactly. Vanessa explained that Ryan seemed less interested in her than in being told he had chosen wrong. He wanted confirmation that some perfect door from his past was still open. Instead, she gave him the truth. I told him if he spent 3 years comparing you to me, then the problem wasn't you. Something inside me finally unclenched. Then she said, he did it to me too. I went still. When we dated, he compared me to other people all the time. Friends, coworkers, people he admired, people online. Someone always had better taste, better discipline, better instincts. He always thought happiness was somewhere just out of reach, attached to somebody else's life. That made everything click in the worst possible way. Ryan wasn't in love with Vanessa. He was in love with the idea that somewhere, someone existed who would make him feel complete without requiring him to do any work on himself. Before we hung up, Vanessa said, don't let him convince you this happened, because you weren't enough. You were never competing with me. You were competing with the version of me he made up. After the call ended, I sat in my kitchen for a long time with the phone still in my hand. For months, I had treated Vanessa like the shadow in my relationship. Now I understood she had been trapped in Ryan's story too. That was the last conversation Vanessa and I ever had. 2 days later, Ryan found out we had spoken. That was when he really lost control. I found out Ryan knew about my conversation with Vanessa while I was leaving work. My phone started buzzing so hard inside my purse that I thought something had happened to my mother. Instead, it was Ryan from a new number. Why are you talking to Vanessa? A second message followed. You had no right to contact her. I stood beside my car in the parking garage and almost smiled because the man who had dragged Vanessa into our relationship for months was now furious that she and I had spoken without him controlling the story. I didn't reply. I called Vanessa. She answered with a tired, "I'm guessing Ryan texted you." Several times. He called me too. Then he called again when I didn't answer. Eventually, my husband picked up. That sounds bad. My husband was polite, she said. What does polite mean? It means he told Ryan to stop contacting his wife before things became a problem. Ryan kept texting for another hour. Accusations, guilt, questions, demands. I saved everything and blocked the new number. By then, I had learned that silence bothered him more than any argument. Over the next few weeks, the truth started spreading, without me having to push it. Mutual friends heard Ryan's version, then remembered things they had ignored before. Jessica, a friend who had always been closer to him, called one afternoon and asked, "Did he really compare you to Vanessa that often?" "Yes," she went quiet. "I keep remembering things. At your engagement dinner, he mentioned Vanessa's taste in restaurants. At the barbecue, he said she understood his work stress better. I thought it was weird, but I didn't want to get involved." She wasn't the only one. Another friend remembered him bringing Vanessa up during honeymoon planning. Someone else remembered a dinner where he compared my cooking to something she used to make. Separately, the moments sounded small. Together, they showed people exactly what I had been living with. Ryan tried to get ahead of it. He told people I abandoned him over one harmless comment. He said I was controlling, unstable, and cruel. He said I took the ring to punish him and canceled the wedding out of spite. Unfortunately for him, I had receipts. Every vendor contract had my name, my card, and my signature. Every deposit came from my account. I had screenshots of the messages from his family, the doorbell footage, and the conversation showing Vanessa was married and wanted nothing to do with him. I didn't post any of it publicly. I didn't need to. When people asked me directly, I answered directly. The ring became his next obsession. He claimed it was rightfully his and threatened to handle it legally. I sent one response with the relevant state law, a photo of the ring, and a simple message, "Stop contacting me." He didn't. A week later, 2 officers came to my door because Ryan had filed a report claiming I'd stolen the ring. I showed them the receipt, the messages, the doorbell footage, and the law I had already saved. The older officer looked at the receipt, then at the messages, then at me. "Ma'am, this isn't a criminal case." He handed everything back. "I think your ex-fiancé watches too many legal dramas." They left within 10 minutes. I kept the case number. After that, I listed the ring for sale. I paid $6,000 for it and sold it for $4,500 to a man who wanted to propose to his girlfriend of 6 years. We met at a coffee shop. I showed him the original receipt, signed a bill of sale, took photos for my records, and handed him the box. Watching another man walk away with that ring was strangely freeing. It felt like the breakup no longer had any loose ends. When he found out, he sent a message from his cousin's phone. "You sold my ring?" I replied with the bill of sale, the police case number, and one final warning. "Contact me again, and I will file for a restraining order." That kept him quiet for 2 days. Then he showed up at my office. He told the receptionist he was my fiancé and needed to see me urgently. Luckily, she called me first. "There's a man here claiming to be your fiancé." "Ex-fiancé," I said. "Please call security." Ryan made a scene in the lobby. He said I was being cruel, that he only wanted closure, that I had turned everyone against him. By the time security arrived, several employees had already stopped working to watch. Ryan kept insisting he only needed 5 minutes. Security didn't even slow down. They escorted him straight through the lobby and out the front doors. Watching security escort him out of the building, I realized I wasn't the one who should feel embarrassed. I had spent weeks worrying. People might think I was cold for leaving so abruptly. But when your ex has to be removed from your workplace because he lied to reception, the story starts explaining itself. The final humiliation came from Vanessa's side. Ryan, apparently desperate for some kind of validation, messaged Vanessa again. When she blocked him, he found her husband on social media. That was when her husband posted a blurred screenshot about men who can't stop calling married women after ruining their own relationships. He didn't name Ryan. He didn't need to. Enough mutual people recognized the situation. Comments spread. Screenshots moved through group chats. Ryan deleted his social media within 24 hours. His mother and sister made one last attempt by showing up at my apartment again. This time, I didn't answer the intercom. I recorded them banging on my door for 15 minutes and sent the footage to a lawyer friend who drafted a cease and desist letter. It cost me $350, and it was worth every cent. After that, the visits stopped. The financial fallout hit Ryan harder than he expected. He had let people believe he contributed half the wedding costs, but when vendors confirmed the contracts were mine and friends started asking about gifts, the story collapsed. He couldn't return money he had never spent. He couldn't defend a ring he didn't legally own. He couldn't claim I stole his wedding when every receipt pointed back to me. Last I heard, he moved back in with his parents for a while. The wedding was gone. The relationship was gone. And by then, most people knew exactly what had happened. Some friends stayed loyal to him, but others didn't. Ryan hadn't listened. 6 weeks after the breakup, one final message came from another unknown number. I finally understand why you left. I read it once, then set the phone down. There was a time when those words would have pulled me back. I would have wanted to hear his voice, wanted to believe pain had made him wiser, wanted to turn one good sentence into a reason to forgive everything before it. But by then, I had already lived through the aftermath of loving someone who only valued me clearly after I left. I never replied. 3 months later, I walked past the restaurant where Ryan proposed. It was raining lightly, the kind of rain that makes the windows glow from inside. A couple sat near the same corner table we once had. The woman was laughing at something across the menu, and the man looked at her like there was nowhere else he wanted to be. I stopped for a second under the awning. The table where Ryan proposed was occupied by strangers now. They looked happy. I kept walking. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket. Unknown number. I watched it ring until it stopped. Then I blocked it without listening to the voicemail. Inside the restaurant, the couple by the window raised their glasses. Outside, I stepped back into the rain and headed toward the corner. The phone stopped ringing. Behind me, the restaurant lights glowed through the rain. I pulled my coat tighter and headed down the street. This time, nobody called my name, and I didn't look back.